Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, it is a pleasure to welcome you to this webinar. My name is Angela Munga Mwadumbo. I'm the chairperson of the East Africa Law Society Women Lawyers Committee. And it is a great honor to have you here on this webinar today. Happy Women's Day to all women and to everyone by extension, because everyone has come from a woman and is connected to a woman somewhere. Either you have a mother, you have sisters, you have friends, you have co-workers, colleagues, children, daughters. So happy Women's Day to us all. I want to take us down memory lane. The first Women's Day was held on February 28, 1909 in New York, and it was organized by women to commemorate a protest that had been held by women the previous year in the garment sector, because women were protesting the unfair working conditions and they were agitating for better working conditions. So that was the genesis of Women's Day. And this concept spread throughout the world. And it spread across the seas to Europe, where on March 19th, 1911, the first Women's Day was marked in Europe, in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland. And since then, while Women's Day was celebrated on diverse dates in late February and early March, up until 1977, when the UN officially declared March 8th as International Women's Day. Since then, it has been commemorated as a day where both women and men celebrate and champion activities that help forge a gender equal world, and specifically targeting actions or events that celebrate women's achievements and increase their visibility while empowering them in all spheres. So we do not take your presence today for granted, because we know there are several other events that have been organized by other entities to mark this very, very important day in our calendar. This year, the theme for International Women's Day is DigitALL, Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. In today's world, digital technology is crucial to our lives. Even the most mundane things are done digitally. So if you are not digitally literate or digitally competent, you're going to have a very rough time. Did you know that there is a gender digital divide, or a digital gender divide? This happens because women have lower access to and use of digital technology more than men. And this stems even from the schooling, where sciences are more, men are more pushed towards sciences. So there's a lower digital adoption amongst women than men. And this, of course, is another avenue for a gender divide. On the other hand, however, there are digital innovations that have helped to bridge the gender divide, especially in the financial sector. So to help us unpack this topic and to help us better understand this year's theme of Women's Day, we have two very eminent speakers who are powerhouses in their respective fields. But before I introduce our speakers, let me go over some few housekeeping rules. We want to have a very interactive session. If you have any comments, observation, views, you can post them on the chat section. You can also wish all women or wish yourself Happy Women's Day on the comment section. We are going to have a Q&A session after the speakers have finished their presentations. However, if you have a burning question, or if you want to keep the conversation going, or if you feel like you might forget your question, you are free to post it on the Q&A section. Then our speakers will answer the question either as they make their presentation or at plenary. We are looking forward to having a very, very interactive and informative session. Our first speaker comes all the way from Rwanda. She is Sylvie Nsanga. She is a digital transformation and innovation specialist with over 14 years experience in digital transformation, strategy, and policy. She has over 25 years experience in child protection and women and youth empowerment. She has a wealth of experience in this digital sector. So she, having been around for quite some time, she will walk us through and tell us how it was in the past and give us, tell us how it is currently and give us projections on the future of digital innovations and gender equality. Sylvie, karibu sana, and take it away. Sylvie, over to you. Yes.
Thank you very much, Angela, for having me to talk about a topic I'm really passionate about. Just a second, I'm going to bring my presentation. Just I'm sharing. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Are you seeing it?
Yes, yes, we can see your screen and we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much again. We are going to talk about innovation technology for gender equality, specifically bringing the aspect of the past, the present, and the future. Are you seeing the next slide? Seems I'm not seeing if you are seeing my screen.
We are still on the, yes, it has moved to the next slide.
Yeah.
ICT and digital transformation, yes.
I'm sure the audience I'm talking to is not new to some of those concepts, where digital innovations and transformation are really disrupting the way we are living, the way we are working, our lifestyle in general, the way we are connecting to people, the way we are doing business, and that is done through different means, different technologies. And when we talk about innovation, it's not only about digital innovations, but clearly digital innovations are also centered and are pushing other type of innovation. You are seeing governments more and more getting digitalized. It means making sure that the service we used to get physically, we are getting them online. After COVID, I'm pretty sure that professional people understand the role of digital technologies and innovation in general. So when it comes to women and digital innovations, specifically in our context as African women into these patriarchal settings, making sure that we are responding to everything from our career, family, and all that, really digital technologies, leveraging them. We are seeing that we can multitask. You can follow your kids because you have a privilege to have your phone in your hand. Like today, I had to pick my kid at 3, but I called someone, we pick them. It's just because I have the privilege of having a device in my hand. But when I talk about women, I really like not talking about women like a homogeneous category, because we have different categories of women. We have us maybe on this call, privileged women, I would say, that with education, with a device in our hand. So there is another woman in the rural village who is doing something, and definitely some type of digital technologies can help her do better what she's doing. Of course, we are going to see how technology can benefit for everyone, because the technology I need as a young professional, as a mother of young children, are very different from the technologies my mother in her 80s should use or need. They are totally, those I need are totally different from a teenager who is in her 14, and what lawyers can use are different from what teachers can use. So when technologies are developed with a human-centered, they try to accommodate the need of different people, and that is what we call the power of innovation. Innovations which are considering really people from the conception, from the development, and even the deployment of them. So we very much know the power of technology when it comes to rural women, linking them to market, those who are mostly into agriculture, for example. Depending also on countries, they are leveraging the power of technology differently. When you go into health sector, technologies are being used and they can really help women, like in Rwanda, there is an application where mothers are tracking their prenatal visits, they are tracking their children growth milestone, and even checking if they have done all the visits required. Small farmers, you are seeing how they are no longer being benefited from by those big companies, because you could find like 1 kilogram of beans in a remote area. They tell you, for example, let me try to say $1. But when the big companies will come to sell them in the market, they will sell at $10. So the small applications which different countries are trying to put in place are really trying to empower even that woman you may not believe that can use technology. As young mothers, I'm sure many of you tried to homeschool your kids. You saw how school didn't stop for some category of people, because maybe their parents were educated and they were enough privileged to have a tool home. There are readings coming showing how technologies is empowering young girls, is increasing their confidence. When a young woman shares a picture, she receives very good comment. Tendencies that she will feel really she's empowered, she will feel she's beautiful, she will be self-confident, even if at the end we will see again how technology can again destroy women, especially cyberbullying and all those things. So it's really very important that women not only use technology, but also become part of it. For example, in the US, you will see that fields really which are using technology, or fields where women went in science and they're going to work in them, they pay well. So like in Silicon Valley, you will see many companies paying well, and majority of women who did science will benefit from working from those companies and having good salary. So why we are also calling for women to be involved into these innovation spaces, not only for them to be part of those who are being well paid, but also for them to influence the narrative of those technologies, whom sometimes come not really representing all of us. And we believe that gender equality is important for solutions and products to come when they are representing both sides. So I would say that the past and the present is really unjust when it comes to women. More and more, we don't have really many studies done, especially to come up with the right data in our countries, developing countries, but few of them coming are still showing a gap between men and women in accessing digital technologies. But also some data are showing how women are going away from using technologies, especially young women, because they are being cyberbullied, they are being harassed, and the tendency is that they don't want to expose themselves anymore or online. When I'm talking about digital injustices, and specifically gender injustices, they are rooted in the same injustices we know women are facing every day. So the digital divide is defined, people can benefit from digital technologies or can be deprived from digital technologies depending on the very things we know, like their social status, their economical status, their geographic location, and even our cultural setting. The research are showing, for example, in some countries where they don't want to see women, some Muslim countries where they don't want even the women to be seen by the face. They don't want also to give them phone because they think a woman holding a phone, it adds more her freedom to talk to men or something like that. But you will see also why majority of women don't hold the right technologies. Here I'm not only talking about some of us who are educated, who are working, who can afford to buy any device we want. I'm talking about a common woman somewhere where you will find that they don't have power on the money they are even working for. So definitely they will not have also that privilege of buying a device they want. And you will find when a household has digital technology like a TV, like a mobile phone, women don't have power to control that device. Many times you will find it's the husband who's controlling the phone, or one of their son in the family. We live the same experiences when I was still working with the government some years back, where the Ministry of Agriculture used to give a fertilizer through a certain mobile application, and you will find that when they call people, they will see women, but when they send messages or they have to send money or something, they will see the names of men, because in our culture you can tell the name of a woman or of a man, and we come to find that it's because those women don't want those phones, even if those women are the one into that agribusiness sector. We are also seeing more and more different type of abuse coming, which are limiting women to really own those devices. We have also to recognize that digital literacy is a problem, and women are the most affected by that, because when you are already illiterate, the majority of women in Africa, the one who are illiterate, you add another burden, another layer on illiteracy. You add digital illiteracy, especially in our countries which are radically going online. It's also a burden, and those are the things we are calling digital abuse. When a certain public office digitalize a service and say from now onward, you are going to be paying online and you are going to be receiving this service online. The majority of those who are going to be excluded are those we know who are marginalized, people with disabilities, different type of disabilities, and women. So the past and the present is still really unjust when we have to talk about digitalization, innovation for women. However, the future, there is still hope. There is still hope that we can reverse this. And doing this, it requires really small initiatives. It requires partnership. It will require willing really to center all applications, all policies around the people. For example, for the last 20 years, the government of Rwanda have been implementing its digital economy policy, where they started in 2000 by making sure that they put the right policies in place, they put the right institutions in place. They moved from that phase to now establishing infrastructure, making sure that people have access to internet, offices have access to internet, they have also the devices they need. And the third phase is a phase where many countries are now by saying, now let's use different digital innovations to make sure that people are accessing services. We are more and more seeing the health sector changing the way they are giving the service, the education sector, and even other sectors, especially the banking sector, which is changing very, very much and very quick. In Rwanda, they have been really radical at the point of making sure also that government services go online. Yes, there is advantages really in using digital technologies. You can see services are being given efficiently, with corruption is being reduced, because in the past, to get a birth certificate, you were supposed to go to queue at a district, go to a certain hospital. So the fact that different government services are connecting to each other, so they are really making it efficient for citizens to get service. And when you are digitalizing your service, it's when, again, we see women being left behind. The majority of them, for example, one of our e-government platform is called Irembo. For you to access service, you need to have a password, you need to have an email, you need to open an account. And we will agree that it's very hard in our communities for people to do that. And there it's where we see injustices, and we say, how can now government make sure that they are digitalizing those services, but they are making sure that a human rights-based approach is applied in the process of digitalizing a service and even putting it online, by respecting the privacy of people. When my mom goes on that platform to look for any administrative documents, for sure she's going to give her password, and the data will remain in the hands of, we call them agents of the company called Irembo, which does that. So how are we ensuring that people are safe, especially women? You will see when I'm sending to my mom money on the mobile money, which is equal to M-Pesa in Kenya. Of course, she used to take the phone and give to the person who takes care of her and say, go and get money for me. Until I had to tell her, you know, by giving this your number and the password to someone can do a crime using your phone number, and no one will believe that it's not you. So awareness is very much needed to make sure that citizens are aware. And that's, we are more and more seeing those abuses by government or private companies digitalizing their service and leaving it in the hand of the citizen to make sure that they are the one doing those things. When you get robbed, for example, when there are people who are calling you, you know, your money, my money went to your mobile phone, can you send it to me? And you call your carrier like Safaricom or MTN. The tendency is that you are the one to go to deal with investigation. No, it shouldn't be like that. If you are bringing a service to citizens, you have to be responsible from the beginning to the end of people's usage, but also empowerment through the process. We are more and more seeing private companies, corporations, leaving the responsibility to the government. This is not right, because the government is there to put infrastructure, to put policies, and to make sure that there is a rule of law. But we are more and more seeing technologies which are coming being really tech-centered than human-centered. So I think in the future, people need to, and especially the audience I'm talking to, which majority are people who are very conversant with the law, need to make sure that those tech corporations are more accountable of the safety. You will see, for example, when you see Facebook will tell you, oh, but we make sure that we ask questions if you are under this age or this age. Yeah, you put those laws, but you have to put other technology which will detect that I'm not that age, because they are capable of using artificial intelligence to detect even people's age. You will see our security is left in our hands. and the companies are still gaining money. Because if you see the number of young people, for example, online when they are not supposed to be there, and how the consequences which are coming, like trafficking and other things, it's more and more the burden of government, not the tech companies, not because they really want, for them, the issue is getting money. So they don't have, no one is pressurizing them. You have our governments, because they are not collectively working together to make sure that they are stronger than the tech companies in terms of regulating this, they seems to be weaker. So one government is not enough to make, for example, Facebook, Twitter accountable on certain things, but like all African countries together can make sure that they pressurize them to make sure the content, for example, respond to our culture, respond to our languages, and all those things. As I was talking about the future, it's really is a combination of small activities and led by people who really can make a difference, or privileged people. When it comes to bridging the gender digital divide, we have seen the president of Rwanda being really very proactive. At every commitment he's going to make, he's putting in an issue of gender and ICT. Of course, we have our constitution, which as personally, myself as an activist, I refer to when I want to make people accountable, by really telling them that from the start, we have a constitution calling for a human-centered approach, for gender equality approach. So that has been a tool that we are also using to make the technology world a little bit inclusive. And we have seen more and more in our national development plans from all those years, the government taking bold decisions by saying we are going to make sure that gender equality, ICT, and other cross-cutting components are part of it and are really mainstreamed. But you will see again here, the government will propose policies, will give direction, but it needs other partners like the civil society, people who understand the law like you guys, to make sure that they walk the journey with them, so to make sure that they are accountable to each other on those moves. 7 years ago, again, when President Kagame was a he-for-she champion, among his commitments, which of course I'm very happy when he does that, because that is my passion, he committed to bridge the gender digital divide and to make sure that he increased the number of women in STEM, because clearly there is a correlation between inclusive innovation sector and the presence of women. So if we don't send women to do science, we will not have women who are influencing the narrative, who are making sure that technology are more inclusive. The tendency, many of the software developers in different fields, physicians, will find it's men, and blindly they will push the narrative they believe are more important. Look at for example, the seat belts. Seat belts are not made for pregnant mothers. And it's how many years the seat belt has been there. Of course, to come up with a seat belt, there is so many algorithms into that. And recently, there is someone, I think, who is working on making sure that they are developing those which can protect also a pregnant mother whenever there is an accident. But also, we still have a room to make accountable our leaders at regional level. You may be aware of a body called the Smart Africa Secretariat, which holds a conference on ICT every year. So in 2017, First Ladies committed, there was a declaration of First Lady to make sure that they call their government to make sure that gender digital divide is a real big component in their IT policies, but also to make sure that women have access on it, but also they know how to use technologies. So some of our leaders, they commit on things, but there is no one to follow up on that to make sure that it's being done. So you will see some of those regional commitments. It depends on countries, how people are active in making sure that countries are implementing them. We have also a dedicated national women and technology strategy, which is trying to make sure that the tech sector become more inclusive, more gender balanced. We have seen like our Minister of ICT, she's a woman, and so many directors at policy making level in the ICT sector, they have really started including women. Of course, there are fields where you don't see women, and that starts already from the education, where you see few women going, for example, in cybersecurity, because if you take that field, you are like a medical doctor, you will be spending some nights at work, making sure that you are securing the system. Yes, there are fields which don't have women, and I don't think today we are going to have women until we change the environment where women are working in. There is no problem if I can have good childcare, even nights, subsidized by my company for me to go, for example, to work the night. So there are so many small initiatives and holistically which need to be in place for women to be present in the tech and innovation sector so that they influence. But something I wanted to say last was the current global UN plan, which we are calling Generation Equality. Some years back, we used to call it the Beijing Platform of Action, which was like for 20 years, 25 years. And now they are no longer doing those big plans of 25 years. They are doing plans of 5 years. And in 2000, there was a conference called Generation Equality in Paris, where again, world leaders agreed to work together to make sure that the world become more gender equitable. And among 7 commitments they had, one of them was specifically on technology, to use technology and innovation for gender equality. And this is why this year we are talking about DigitALL, innovation and gender equality. It's because it was a long commitment, because in the past they used to say, oh, okay, we are going to use technology to promote women. And it was like a small component which needed to be mainstreamed in other components, and no one was responsible. But this, for this plan, they really made a bold decision to make sure that it was among the 7 commitments the world is taking. They want to make sure that women become more literate. They want to make sure that innovation ecosystem become more inclusive, because as I said, when innovations are inclusive, they are going to respond to the needs of different people and different needs. But also they're emphasizing on our security as women online, because a woman who is being abused in an offline setup, when it comes online, it gets more amplified. Everyone has now access on it. We have seen more and more women in the region who are MP, for example, and just one scandal comes and it goes online, it becomes viral. And after a few years, you will no longer hear that woman talking because she was bullied, and she feels that being in that, as we know very much, when a woman is bullied, before actually putting it online, it really affects her self-esteem. And then the tendency is that our society will feel that it's like someone died if there is a drama done by a woman. So there are different strategies which need to be in place. Like in Rwanda, we have the cybersecurity law, which clearly specify that any abuse, any crime done through a digital mean is equally a crime, and there are provisions to make sure that perpetrators are followed and they are punished according to the law. We have a recent data protection law also, which really give provision on individual data. It means if I went out with you for a drink, yes, I agreed to take a picture with you. If we were doing anything, I consented maybe for that thing, but I did not consent for you to share my picture. All that is into our new data protection law. Does not have everything as a feminist I would wish to see in the law, but it's a very good starting point for many people. So different initiatives, as I kept saying, need to be in place, and they need to be individual based, and they need to they need to respond to specific individual women needs, but also to different specific communities, because the way our countries are different, maybe in Rwanda it's easy because we are speaking one language as Kinyarwanda, but when you go outside Rwanda, you will find different communities with a different language. So you are not going to give yourself an award that you brought this specific application when it doesn't, it's in English, for example, or it's in a certain language of a certain community, because bringing it to be implemented somewhere will not really be helpful for the women or for the community. So specifically for innovations to benefit women, there are few things which need to be in place. Those women need to have access to the tools and have the right skills to use those tools. The skills, I mean, yes, they are not educated, but they have already their local knowledge. They know something as a starting point. If you are going to use voice, you are going to use images, but there is always a need. If your technology is people-centered, it will have always a way of addressing a specific community need. If you did not develop it with a technology mind only, but with a human mind, because the tendency is that in the government or in the private sector, when they say we are paying a lot of people to do this service, can we put it digital? So the tendency will be automating a service, looking for a digital solutions, but not going to see those people we are going to remove in this company. They were serving which community and what were the need of this community. And then you bring a technology starting from the people, not from your office. Something important I kept talking about is the right content in the right language, and which is really needed by me. I said different age of women, different category of women need different things. So for it to be relevant for them, it needs to bring their individual aspect in that technology. Another thing is affordability. This sector is not regulated. We have seen, for example, health sector being regulated. In Rwanda, when you bring a clinic or a hospital, there is clear payment structures you need to get from the Ministry of Health. But in the tech sector, because government are really happy seeing a certain solutions coming, and without really wanting to know how much citizens are going to be paid for this service, when it comes to transfer money or all those things, you will see negotiation is between the private investor and the government, but rarely they are going to think about the citizen who's going to pay money for that. So affordability is key to make sure that those innovations also benefit women. And the last is empowering women. We have seen so many NGOs bringing projects and solutions, but which are not responding to women's needs because of the problem which women have already in their communities. There are different stereotypes. You will find tendency is that a woman who has a good phone, they will start asking, where did this person get this phone? For sure has a sugar daddy or something like that. That is already in the mindset of people, and you will see women starting hiding themselves even to access something. I have a friend of mine who said one day, Sylvia, I can't buy a car because I don't have yet a husband. They will think I have sugar daddy. So there are few things which are discouraging women really to benefit from all those innovations. And the last, of course, as I said, it's our safety. We need to feel safe when we are asking different information. If I'm using an application, a health application, or as I'm talking to lawyers, how am I safe when I know, for example, my case is into a digital tool accessed from the investigation, the prosecution? How am I safe? So the government and the service provider need to assure me that whatever information I'm giving is safe at 100%. So you will see resistance of our communities to use technology is that lack of trust in this something which is coming, which they are seeing like maybe for the educated or for certain category of women. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sylvie, for walking us through the journey and for giving us a snapshot of what it was in the past how it is now and what to expect in the future. From your presentation, I have seen that we have similar challenges across countries. You have mentioned the issue of digital privacy, especially amongst for members of our society who are not really technologically savvy, because here in Kenya, we have the eCitizen platform. Now, if you want to apply for several services from the government, you can only apply through that digital platform. So you find that maybe there's someone who does not even have a page. So they are created for a page, somebody creates for them an email, creates for them a password. Then where does that leave them in the future if they can't find that person, or if somebody gets into their portal and they do other things that might not be legal? Then you have also challenged us to make our leaders more accountable, both nationally and regionally, because these things piggyback on each other. You see, in the digital world, there are no borders. News can break in Croatia, and we are seated here in Nairobi or in Rwanda or wherever, and we get first-hand information. So it's about time we challenged our leaders, and we also participate in ensuring that we create gender-sensitive digital policies, and we follow through on that. So we shall have a short plenary session touching on Ms. Sylvie's presentation. Anyone with a comment or a question? I can see Alain Garretze is requesting to have the presentation shared. I mean, the slides shared after the presentation. I think this can be arranged. However, Alain, this webinar is being beamed on all social media platforms for the East Africa Law Society. There's a YouTube page, ELS. We have a YouTube page, a Facebook page, on Twitter. So you can always refer to the presentation as and when you would require. But the presentation, we can organize to have the presentations shared. I can see there is one hand, just a minute. Kavata Maingi, I can see your hand is up. Kavata, you are now enabled to talk. You can unmute and address us. Members, if you have a question, comment, observation, anything to add, you are welcome. We are now at the plenary session. Kavata Maingi, you are enabled to speak. You can unmute and proceed to address us. Kavata? Okay. Going through your comments, I can see we are all wishing each other a happy Women's Day to all women. We can see your wishes, Grace Ntambi, Alain Garretze again, Eunice Monzi, Chipu Johnson, Emmanuel Moga. Thank you very much for your best wishes. As our members are thinking about what questions or what comments or how to react to your presentation, maybe Sylvie, you can give us your take on the whole issue of digital privacy. First of all, is that even a right? Can it exist? And hand in hand, that goes hand in hand with the right to be forgotten. I'm taking you back to the scenario that you had posed to us, where you agreed to pose for a picture, but you have not agreed to have the picture posted. So what sort of policies can we enact to protect members? or to protect our citizens from that. Generally on the issue of digital privacy, is that even a concept? Is it possible? Is it a misnomer, a conundrum? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on digital privacy, Sylvie. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. You are seeing many countries not really bothering about that very much, but more other countries are coming, especially on the issue of child digital privacy, because they believe that it's easy to approach it. When it comes to adult people like us, of course, it's hard because we were in a wedding and someone shared a picture. Because definitely, what some of the laws are saying, they are saying if there is a wrong, if you share it with a wrong, I don't know the right terms, you know, I'm paying attention because now I'm dealing with lawyers and people who understand law. When I'm into the ICT sector, I allow myself to throw those words which are legal. But it seems what is hard for me when I was working on the cybercrime law, as at that time as the head of ICT policy and strategy, is that the issue was, if someone share a picture, how do you know that that person had the bad intent or not? That is more an issue I would throw to you, but definitely if you share my picture, we are in this conference, you are giving people information that there was this conference and it's Women's Day, you are sharing my picture. Definitely there is no bad intent in that case. If you are sharing pictures on many times on event I consented to, and which are from a public interest, I would say from someone who does not have a legal background, that it is fine because there was no bad intent. You are informing people, you are making people aware about the subject you were talking about. But if you and I went for a drink and you saw me drunk, and you say now you are sharing my picture for everyone to see how I was drunk or something, there is bad intent because you are personally showing my status, maybe in a situation where I wasn't even aware, because if I have taken 2 or 3 glasses of wine, I'm not even aware very much about the rest of even the conversation. So you coming to put my picture online, it's an issue, because this is very alarming in Rwanda, where we are seeing more and more people having access on those smartphones and sharing. So we have like everyday drama of cyberbullying, and I have seen more and more people not giving it value, but of course it's affecting different people, especially in the artist community, where and majority of the pictures they are sharing are pictures of women. She was my girlfriend and now she's with another person, so let me bring that old pictures. And we are seeing more men who are using those pictures by asking women money, by saying, if you don't give me this amount of money, I'm going to share those pictures. So generally, as an activist, I'm not really differentiating those abuse from the offline abuse, because we know very much what is abuse in the offline settings. We know how women are being abused in offices, in different social or gathering, in families. So bringing those online, it's just the same abuse which has gone online. So what lawmakers need to know is that they have more, they get amplified. Many people have access even to those news than in the past. So how now, this is a challenge to lawmakers. How should they see the policies in place, the law in places, and they see loopholes? Of course, like their platform like YouTube, where our government don't have a say on them. And the only say they can have is maybe to say we are blocking YouTube channel we are blocking YouTube from our network, which again, it's another form of abuse because you can't deny people to access any digital form they want. However, what I have seen in the US and in other settings, you will see, for example, when you go to the Logan International Airport, it's in Massachusetts, when you are at the airport and you try to access a certain website, sometimes they will tell you this is not a child appropriate website, and our airport is a child friendly airport. Why? Because they take an airport as a public space, and they say in a public space, young people are there. So how should we make sure that we protect them is by making sure that our network is capable of filtering some of the content which we think are not child appropriate. For that to happen, a country needs to have already some basic law which are guiding their whole digital ecosystem. What does it mean? It means your network is capable of detecting a computer which is using, for example, a wrong or Microsoft Office. Those are the license also they pay, but many of our countries are using fake licenses, and you will see many of the solutions are not already respecting some laws. So it's for you to be a really digital safe environment, you need to abide to all digital laws. Say, I'm not going to use a fake system, and if I use a license system, it means it will detect already whatever is fake on my network. So some of those things for us in Africa to approach them, we need to take a bold decision, but also at one point it will exclude many people because some of our schools don't have enough fund, for example, to pay for Microsoft offices. Already the price the tech companies are putting for their solutions are very high, comparing even to our living standard. So how now Africa can come together to bargain for their benefit? That will require our countries to abide on certain agreement and to have negotiation power. And this, I think, it's really very, very high for me as a person who does not have legal background to tackle it. But I need to agree that there is no lawyer I have seen in my network. When I mean lawyer, I want to mean legal people in general who are interested in understanding those law guiding globally technology. We don't have them. I don't have friends who are conversant with this topic, whom I can sit with. I argue on the technology side and they argue on the legal background so that we have a point where we say, now this is what has to happen. But generally, we don't want citizens to be responsible of their security. The tech companies and the government are the one to make sure that citizens are safe. And by doing so, there is a certain list of things which have to be put in place by government and which have to be respected by tech companies. I'm just taking a simple example. I'm always having SMS from, I'm using MTN, advertising people's products. That is not correct. Maybe legally someone can argue with me. I'm expecting to receive only message which are for public intent, like health message, police message, for my safety, for the safety of our community. But if a company come to advertise and MTN use me to make known the product, because MTN is being paid. I'm sorry to talk about MTN because we have also others, it's just an example. So no one is making them accountable because then they are getting money for their advertisement, but they are not paying me. They could have paid me by making sure that they reduce, maybe they give me free gigabytes or something like that. So who is making them accountable? When activists are raising their voice with their them not being very conversant with the law, we don't have that synergy to come together, activists, legal people, to make sure that we have a strong voice and support our government, because the minimum our government are doing is to make sure that there is a minimum infrastructure that we can benefit from the internet, to make sure that those laws are there, minimum law, And we should know that law are not there to be there eternally. They have to be upgraded. I don't know the right term you use,
Yes,
but
yes.
definitely a law which was there 3 years ago maybe does not respond to the change of technology today. So for a technology to change, it needs to go with laws, current laws which are there. We are on a weak position as citizens, so while we are consuming everything.
Thank you very much for that in-depth answer. I believe from that explanation, Vivian Ogobo, I believe your question has been answered. And Sylvie has thrown a challenge to us as lawyers. She has given us a business opportunity. We need to have lawyers who are as enthusiastic about policies, specifically policies to do with technology and innovations. As she has alluded to, the whole ecosystem needs to be in sync so that everyone within the ecosystem or anyone consuming the services or the products within the ecosystem can feel protected. I also like your challenge that it should not be on the consumer, like the service provider also has a role to play on that. So let us shift gears a bit. We welcome our second presenter.
There was a small question on cross-border.
Yeah, you had answered that in your presentation. But anyway, let us hear from the next presentation. Then if there's any follow-up response, we can do that during the next, the second plenary session. We welcome now our second panelist, Marianne Ochola. She is the Managing Director at Endeavor Kenya. She's also a trained financial journalist who is passionate about fueling economic growth in Africa through data-driven journalism. As a Managing Director of Endeavor Kenya, she manages portfolios from several African countries. She also holds an MBA from IE Business School, and she will take us through how digital innovation and information technology is enhancing entrepreneurship and economic empowerment of women. Marianne, welcome and take it away. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Angela, and thank you to everyone who's joined the webinar today. So as Angela has described, I am the Managing Director for Endeavor in Kenya, and I would really like to focus on how tech entrepreneurship is, a really good economic opportunity for women when we think about entrepreneurship, but also some of the challenges that we're currently facing as we try to tap into this opportunity. So I'll just share a bit of slides about who we are and what we do, and perhaps a bit about the topic. So great. So Angela, can you see that from your end?
Yes, I can see the presentation.
Okay, great. So we are the leading community of, by, and for high impact entrepreneurs. And we describe high impact entrepreneurs as in every entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I've heard Angela use the word ecosystem. So it's important to differentiate what ecosystem I'm talking about. So in every entrepreneurial ecosystem, you have entrepreneurs who dream bigger than anybody else, who see things or see problems that nobody else is seeing, and go for it, in terms of solving it. They also think about scale. So high impact entrepreneurs think about scale. They think about, if I'm going to start, this solution where I'm perhaps solving for access, for water, that I want to do it at scale. And so I want to do it beyond Nairobi. I want to go to Naivasha, to Kisumu. I want to go to Kigali. I want to go to Lusaka. So they're already thinking about scale right from the beginning. And most importantly, they're also thinking about paying it forward, that you're not just starting a business that can feed you and your family, but you're also starting a business that, you know, can create economic opportunity for your employees, for the community, and essentially, you know, transform the economy. So that's what a high impact entrepreneur is. We're driven by the core belief that it is this high impact entrepreneurs that will transform economies. Every entrepreneur is important because kids are graduating from school, but not everybody ultimately finds a job. So entrepreneurship is important as a means of subsistence, but ultimately for us to transform our economies and transform them at scale, then we need entrepreneurs who are also thinking about scale right from the beginning. And we see our role as creating a multiplier effect, that when you find these entrepreneurs who dream bigger and scale, and that we will find investment for them, we'll connect them globally to the people they need to know to help their businesses grow, and we'll provide a platform for them to pay it forward to the next generation of entrepreneurs. So we want to create an entrepreneurial culture that's not just about sustenance, but that's about economic transformation. And we do this because to build thriving entrepreneurial ecosystems especially in emerging and underserved markets around the world, then we need to make that intentional effort. So the way we support entrepreneurs is by providing a network of trust. And that's, as an entrepreneur, sometimes, when people are talking to you about your business, you're like, are you trying to steal my idea? Why are you asking me all these questions? But how can we support entrepreneurs? By creating communities, of trust, where they can talk about their businesses and the challenges that they're facing. And there are people who are happy to help them think through those challenges. We also provide mentorship and expertise, and not just locally, because this is about scale. It's about people who are thinking about building $1 billion businesses, but it's really providing a global network, for them to be able to achieve that scale. It's also access to capital. We've been working with founders around the world for 25 years. So we know where capital comes from, who these capital providers are. So it's really, providing those connections, but it's also about personal growth for you as an entrepreneur. And it's also about how do you pay it forward to make sure that the next generation of entrepreneurs has it easier. So some of the select endeavor companies in Kenya, and I chose Kenya because I imagined that you would know a lot of these businesses. Vivo Activewear, they're in 22 stores in Kenya and in Rwanda. Basically she found a niche, which is that African women, you either had to go to a Mtumba store and find a size 14 and a size 16 and try to make it work, or you had to go to your seamstress to make something that fits your body. So how, do we start, to design clothes that are designed with the African woman in mind right from the beginning? And she's found success in that. Africa Stalking, so they work with some of the fastest growing startups in the region, and is to really help them build personalized communication channels, USSD, SMS, but anything that requires you to communicate with your customers or your audiences at scale. And then Twiga is providing that connection between food producers and food consumers, by breaking all the sort of, channels in between that, significantly add to the cost of food. But having said that, and with a focus on women, because today is International Women's Day, I just wanted to share some key stats, even as we think about how do we grow these big businesses that are going to transform our economies. Sub-Saharan Africa boasts of the world's highest rate of women entrepreneurs at 27%. Actually, countries like Uganda in the Global Entrepreneurship Monitoring report have been earmarked as one of the world's most entrepreneurial country. But this is in startup rates. This is in the amount of businesses that are being started. But when it comes to how many businesses survive beyond the second year, then that becomes a different story. So there's a question there around, if we have entrepreneurial talent, what happens after 2 years? Why do these businesses fail? And then when we look at a majority of these businesses that are started by women, a lot of them tend to be very small, and a lot of them tend to be either me who is making jewelry and I'm selling it to my clients. And usually my clients are people I know, they're people I work with in the office, or they're friends of friends of friends. So it's personal networks. and the business is quite small, and it's almost designed to stay small. We're not thinking about scale. But when you look at other parts of the world, people start businesses with the mindset to scale, right from the beginning. So yes, women are starting businesses, but either A, they're not surviving beyond the second year, or number two, a majority of these businesses are small and they don't really outgrow even you, if you get a new job and now it's taking a lot more of your time, the business, is no longer there. Then technology firms led by women experience a 35% higher rate on investment than those led by men. So you wonder, if this is the case, why don't we have a lot more, women entrepreneurs, trying it out in the digital space, getting to start technology businesses. And technology here, the reason we're excited about technology and tech-enabled businesses is because it makes it easier to scale your business, because it's digital. If you're selling clothes, you're selling them online. You don't have to keep building a store. If you want a presence in Bungoma, in Busia, in Soroti, in all of these places, if you have a presence on the internet, then it becomes easy for you to acquire customers, across board. And then the fourth key stat is that globally men account for 92% of partners in the top 100 venture capital firms. So this is to compare the entrepreneur side and the capital allocation side, so that women are still not the ones allocating capital. And this is venture capital because we're focusing on high growth businesses. But even when you focus on traditional businesses and you go to the bank, if you look at most of our banks, the leadership is still quite top mill heavy. We do have people like Emma Mugisha in Uganda. We have a number of women in C-suite now, but even then it is still, not that balance, that gender balance, when it comes to the people allocating finance, is still not where it should be. The reason why this is an important conversation is because access to finance is important if we're going to grow businesses. And if the people who are making the decisions about where to allocate capital do not see the female lens, so either their empathy or the, just understanding how a female entrepreneur thinks, what are her fears, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. We've also had some female entrepreneurs say that when men pitch a business, they are asked opportunity questions, questions around opportunity and potential. How are you going to scale? How are you thinking about this? How do you double the business? But when female founders pitch, they've said that they find that the questions are more risk about, have you thought about the risks? What if this business doesn't succeed? So it's really, that's why we need gender equality on both fronts, entrepreneurship, but also on the capital allocation side. So Kenya is one of the top 4 countries in Africa when it comes to startup funding. And this is great. I mean, it's a good story that, when we look at 2022 and all the capital that was raised across the continent, Nigeria, leading at 1.2 billion, but Kenya, a close second at 1.1 billion. So that's a good story. That's something we can capitalize on. But then when we look at the sectors in which, this capital was allocated, a lot of it going to fintech, which is great because a lot of our transactions are still very cash-based. We have a lot of fragmentation when it comes to, if you want to pay money across the border, we don't have a seamless way of making payments, and payments are really, how we trade. So fintech is a big opportunity, and it raised, the most amount of capital, followed by energy, logistics, retail, down to education. But when you look at these sectors and you ask yourself, where are female entrepreneurs likely to be found? A lot of female entrepreneurs, in agriculture and food, in retail, when it comes to fashion, apparel, food as well, food retail. But when you think about energy, when you think about logistics, when you think about fintech, not many female founders, in that space. So even across sectors, and the sectors that are attracting the most capital, and that tells you the sectors that venture capitalists, see as the most profitable, still gender representation is also, not as it should be. These are, and the thing is, the issue of capital, it's not one reason that, you can't say, the reason is this. It's a number of reasons, but number one is culture. Is how do we think of women as risk takers? Even us as women, do we think of ourselves as risk takers? That I can start a business, build a software platform, and sell it to the biggest banks in the land. So there's a culture of that, you know, women are more risk averse, even, you know, in our language, you know, even when we are raising girls, you know, it's more, you know, you don't touch the fire, don't, you know, so it's all very conservative, and it demonstrates itself, you know, when it comes to starting entrepreneurial ventures, where it's about risk taking, it's about thinking big, and then it's also about role models. If you haven't seen a woman grow a multi-million tech business, then you also ask yourself, a lot of people ask, why do I think I can do it, right? Because you haven't seen role models. So it becomes a loop where, because, you know, culturally we're not seeing a lot of women going big, then you also don't think you can. So I think there's also a question of role models, and where then we see them, the onus is on us to put them on platforms where they can talk about their experience, they can talk about how they made it, so that others, especially younger women, can see themselves in, you know, represented in that person. And then it's really about structural biases. You know, you've heard of these things where decisions are made, the meeting met before the meeting. So when people are coming for the meeting, they're just sort of coming to either, you know, formalize or to, so it's really, and the response here is, how do we encourage women to form business networks where we don't just meet to talk about, you know, how are you, how are your children, and all these are important issues, but we also meet to talk about, how's your business doing, how can we support you, or I can introduce you to, you know, to this and that person, they're looking for somebody to supply them with, you know, what it is that you're providing, but how do we think about, you know, networks that serve women as entrepreneurs, because ultimately decisions are made in those informal networks a lot of the times, and people just show up, you know, formally when, you know, perhaps perceptions have already been formed and decisions have already been made. But most importantly, I think it's about women as capital owners and allocators. Because if I am a woman and I'm allocating capital, whether I'm sitting in a bank, whether I'm sitting in a venture capital firm, or whether I have my own savings that I would like to invest, you know, in a female entrepreneur, I am more likely to understand the perspective of a female founder in a way that perhaps a male colleague cannot. And here, the point I'm making is not replacing, you know, it's not replace male with female, it's the question of diversity, that the more you have people with different perspectives, then the more people who are different are more likely to, you know, to be heard. So, I mean, these are just four, and, you know, four of the top ones, and I'm sure we can add to this list, but just to say that we have to be intentional about how we, you know, how we set up some of these structures, be it in financial institutions, be it in, you know, in institutions of learning, and all of these places where resources are allocated. If you're not in the room, then you will not be considered. And then finally, I just wanted to share this to say that while we're still saying that, you know, we're not seeing enough women innovating in tech, we still have fantastic stories. You can see, you know, the Kenyan flag in a number of this, you know, instances, but it's women who have raised more than $3 million rounds in the last, in the last year or so. So Sarah, Grow Intelligence is an analytics platform. Angaza is a software platform. Hilda Mora does fintech, you know, through her company Possessia. There's Quara, which is really about, you know, fintech in the SACCO space. Jihan, who's building InsurTech, so how you can, you know, you can buy insurance, you know, online digitally for exactly what you need and for exactly the time, you know, the frame of time that you need it. Kagore, who's making it easy for you to procure, you know, building material online and really, you know, monitor your costs. And then, so just to say that there's still reason to celebrate, but we need to see a lot more female faces when we celebrate the rounds that are being raised in tech. The other reason that we need to see more tech innovators is because the women in themselves are a very large market, and some challenges that women face are not being, you know, they're not being served. And I'll give an example of, you know, Joanna Bishel down there, Kasha, a company that was founded, you know, out of Rwanda. But it's really, when you think about ordering contraceptives, when you think about ordering, sanitary products, that it's not so easy for a lot of women, especially the younger ones. So, she started this business where you could order discreetly online, and, the package would come to you and it will be, covered in a brown bag. Nobody really knows, what it is that you're ordering. But when it comes to female founders, we are also innovating for the female market. And that's why it's important for us to encourage entrepreneurs to continue to innovate in the tech space. So I'll stop there, Angela.
Wow, that was a very thought-provoking and fast-paced presentation. I think we have really been challenged to think more, to think bravely, and to, especially on the issues that you have raised on why there's a difference between how female entrepreneurs are approached and how male entrepreneurs are approached, about culture or models, structural biases, and the issue about the capital owners and allocators. So it just challenges us to think big and to think bigger. And after we have thought bigger, we need to think even bigger, especially the last round. The last slide on how much women entrepreneurs have been able to raise on during the last capital raising rounds. Members, it's the plenary is open. If you have any questions for maybe Anne, or any questions regarding even Sylvie's presentation, you are free to, you can raise your hand. We have a bit of time, so you can raise your hand, and then we shall allow you to speak. As we wait for your questions, Sylvia, Sylvie, back to you to answer a bit on Vivian Obobo's question that you had wanted to touch on before Marianne made her presentation. Sylvie? This is the question on cross-border breach of privacy. Can they be nationalized and handled within states?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to explain, like in Rwanda, we work with the Interpol to sort anything digital crime or child trafficking with the Interpol. So it means when someone has been abused, you go to the investigation bureau and they identify where is the, of course, when it comes to technology, you say, I was called by someone who was using this number, or someone took my phone. They work with the telecom companies. They will identify where is this person, where is he? Is he in the region or outside the region? And then they will communicate with the other parties. So countries work together, and they are united through the Interpol. I think as lawyer, you understand how the Interpol work with to facilitate countries. So when a case has been filed at the investigation bureau contacts the other partner through the Interpol.
Thank you very much, Sylvie, for that clarification. Vivian, I hope now your question is fully answered. Back to the chat section, I can see we are still requesting for the slides. Again, this is a presentation that will be shared. It's being streamed live on all the ELS, that is the East African Law Society social media platforms, but we can organize to have the slides shared maybe to your email. Alain, on the issue of a small resume in French, we shall look into that. Lorna McKenna, I can see your hand is raised. Kindly unmute and proceed to either ask your question or give your comments. Lorna, you are unmuted, but we can't hear you. I can see you said you have raised your hand by mistake, but now that you are on the platform, you might as well just greet us and wish us a happy Women's Day, Lorraine. Okay. Members.
I'm sorry, could you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm really sorry I pressed the mic button by mistake, but I've really gotten really insightful notes from both the speakers and you, Angela, as well. Thank you for conducting it so far. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorna, and happy Women's Day to you too. Members, again, you are free to raise any question, to ask any question. If there are no questions, we can get some final remarks from our speakers. We can start with Sylvie. Any final remarks or closing remarks?
Thank you very much. First, it would be to request women to use their privilege and their knowledge to make sure that we address this gender digital divide, because we have seen how technology innovations are very important to empower women, to help us in everything we are doing, from our career, from multitasking, from relieving us from some of the unpaid care work. It is very, very important that every woman get this opportunity to use the technologies which are meaningful to survive. That is one thing. Second, I would request many women lawyers to venture in this field where they will understand laws governing technologies and innovation, and I'm very sure that their narrative will be very important to shape, to advocate for a more inclusive innovation ecosystem wherever they are. Last, it will be to wish you Women's Day. It's not a day to have flowers only, or have presents only. It's not a birthday. It's a day where we need to reflect not on ourselves only, but on the struggle different women are going through. And maybe in one way or another, we have some privileges which can contribute to ending gender injustices and digital injustices. Thank you very much for having me.
Karibu sana, Sylvie. We have really benefited from your presentation. Over to you, Mary Ann. Maybe before you give your final remarks, any tips you would wish to give lawyers or advocates when it comes to viewing the legal practice as a business or as an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneurial venture, because the legal profession is more of a closed book profession. So any ideas you might have, because our audience is predominantly advocates, because I'm quite sure very few of us think about raising capital for the business or getting innovations to make work easier or to reach other clients. So maybe a word of advice tailored to advocates then after on raising capital and on expanding and building their businesses. Then we'll take your final remarks.
Great. Yes, I'll do both. So first, I think is to say that the world is evolving really fast, from a technology perspective. And first, as a legal, fraternity, I think is how you support that growth. So we are having a lot of, all of this venture capital raising, all of that, transaction advisory and all of that. It's a lot of contracts and and most of them are coming, from, because the capital allocators are, at least now, for the most part, outside of the continent. So I think it's really familiarizing yourself, if you're interested in finance and in how money moves, financing, familiarizing yourself with that sector, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in supporting young entrepreneurs as they have great dreams, they have great ideas, but for a lot of them, term sheets, it's all legal, language, it's all legal jargon. So I think it's also to encourage, lawyers locally to participate in those transactions from an advisory and perspective. And it starts sometimes with even participating in angel investments. When you hear somebody is starting a tech business, how can you get into their cap table? How can you invest $1,000 into a business that is going to ultimately be hundreds of millions of dollars, and your $1,000 becomes it's risky, yes, but I think it's one of the ways you can start to understand the opportunity, even as you think about how you advise. And then I think secondly is also, how can you disrupt the legal profession? What are some of the places that are still very manual? Where are the redundancies? How can technology, be used, to leverage? We are seeing for example, with doctors, we're starting to see, you've seen this billboards for My Dawa, that you can order drugs online, or you can dial a doctor, can you dial a lawyer? Can you, especially for some of these transactions that are simple and maybe standard, but really, and you understand your field better than I do, but how can you disrupt yourself before technology disrupts? So I think that's the other way to think about it, and to look for the opportunities in technology. And then third, I think there's still quite a bit that we don't know about, data privacy, all of these things, that come with new technology. So also, how do you keep yourself ahead of that, and really start to be a part of advising entrepreneurs, as they scale these businesses? What are some of those legal things to look out for? From data privacy comes to mind, because I think it's been quite, people have been talking about it for quite a while, since we set up the Data Protection Act. And then, yes, you're a lawyer, but it doesn't mean that because I think we say these things like, somebody, if they're a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, they're not an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurship is really seeing a problem and solving it. And I always say, even if you're not in court, or even if you're not, in the surgical room with a scalpel, it doesn't mean that knowledge cannot be applied, in other ways as well. So I think to encourage as many of us, especially women, to think about entrepreneurship, to think about solving problems that we can solve, and to leverage technology. There's a lot of value to be captured, from that movement. So I think that also sums up as my parting shot, but to also just say that Africa is really, there's a lot of white space in solving for a lot. There are a lot of problems to be solved. So let's think about, what entrepreneurial and digital solutions we can come up with. Thank you very much for your time today, and I wish you all a happy International Women's Day.
Wait, before you leave, there's something you had mentioned, but you really glossed over it. What exactly are angel investments?
Angel, so if I as Marianne decide today that I am going to build a technology innovation that makes it easier for mothers to get somebody a nanny for the day. So for example, you know, for those who are mothers, you know the pain of waking up in the morning and your house help decides today I'm not working. So I start a platform. I say, oh, on this platform, I'll look for, so it's essentially a bureau, but a digital bureau. So I'm going to put the profile of women that I know, I've done their due diligence, I know who they are, they'll not harm your babies, and I'll put them there. You come, you click, you book, you pay, and then the nanny gets a message on their phone and they come to your house and you know, they work with you for the day, and then you pay me for the day. But you see, for me to build that platform and to do the legwork of the due diligence, I probably need 40,000 shillings, 50,000 shillings, 100,000 shillings. No bank is going to give me that money, because it's just an idea, you know, and banks usually, you know, the compliance, you know, what they call for in terms of compliance is quite high. So I might come to you, Angela, and tell you, look, why don't you give me 30,000 Kenya shillings for me to set up this business, and then you're going to be a part owner in my business. All you need to do is give me the money. So if you do accept, then you become an angel investor in my business. And the more my business grows, if you took 10% of my business, if my business becomes now 200,000 worth 300,000, your 10% is growing. And all you did was make an investment. So I think it's to really encourage us to think about investing in people we believe in, that investments are not just in land and in rentals, that we can be angel investors as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. At least if I speak for myself, amongst all the other things, all the other information that I have gotten, all the other things I have learned, top of them is angel investments, that we need to support each other and we need to basically be open to taking risks. And in the end, we'll grow the tech space, and this will bridge the gender gap. So with that, I believe we have come to the end of our webinar today. We have finished a bit early, which will give us time to go and engage in other activities that have been planned for the Women's Day. Again, on behalf of the East Africa Law Society Women Lawyers Committee, we want to thank you for your participation. Thank you to the speakers for imparting your knowledge. Thank you to the audience for being very interactive. And once again, a happy Women's Day to all of us. And with that, have a very good afternoon and enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.